Now that you've taken some time to break down your songs, I think we should take a look at the Paper 3 prompt and really get an understanding of what this assignment is asking us to do. So when you take a look at the Paper 3 prompt that is uploaded onto Blackboard, you'll see that this is your third and final big essay. It's a 2 to 3 page essay and should be worth about 200 points. For this one, I want you to choose one song that you feel has maybe an interesting theme or an interesting method or an interesting tone. You don't have to look at all three, but at least one of those. I want you to also choose and define 3 poetic devices or 3 interesting things about the poem. You could look at the repetition, you could look at the similes, you could look at the rhyming, you could look at the metaphors or the allusions that are being made, all sorts of things you can do for this part. Then what I want you to do is explain to the reader how these devices or how these things within the poem are giving us evidence. I want you to explain the poetic devices or the parts of the poem by giving evidence from that song. I want you to explain how they are working by giving evidence from the song. You're going to form a thesis, and this thesis is going to have 3 parts. You should identify the literary items that you're going to use, and you should maybe bring in what that theme or that message is that those literary devices are helping us to understand. You might also want to mention the author within your thesis. So here's an example. If I were doing this with Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Raven, I might say that Edgar Allan Poe, in his poem The Raven, uses alliteration, consonants, and onomatopoeia to create a haunting melodic tone, making the raven an ominous threat to the narrator. I would then break my poem or my paper down into a sample outline. I'd have an introduction where I would introduce the poem, the author, and the thesis. I would have 3 main body paragraphs dedicated to the elements of the poem that I am looking to use, and explain how those things contribute to the theme or the tone or the message. And then I would have a conclusion. You will have a works cited page, and the works cited page will just include the lyrics to the song and also any references that you make to definitions of the poetic devices that you are looking at. We will be using the brainstorm that we are going to do today as one of your drafts, and then you will also have a rough draft of this essay, which will be due sometime after Thanksgiving break. Not Monday, but the Wednesday after Thanksgiving break. And then the final version of this, which will be due the week before finals week. And I will be grading you on the following things: your thesis and overall argument, correct use of poetic devices and explanation of how they work, integration of textual analysis and quotes, just like we've been doing all semester, analysis of those quotes, your conclusion, organization of paragraphs and transitions, MLA basic formatting, MLA citations and works cited page, and then grammar, syntax, and punctuation. So all of the basic things. So now that we've taken a look at the Paper 3 prompt, I would really like for us to think about our thesis and our outline of our essay. So here's a sample thesis that I might use for Katy Perry's Firework. Katy Perry's Firework evokes a message of inspiration and embraces individuality through the use of metaphor, rhetorical questions, and repetition. What I love about this song is the fact that there is so much that I can talk about and discuss within the song, but I only chose metaphor, rhetorical questions, and repetition. So things that you should include in your thesis: probably the name of your song, Katy Perry's Firework, and the author's name as well. You should also take a look at what message or tone or theme the song is introducing to us. So I was arguing that Katy Perry's Firework evokes a message of inspiration and this idea of embracing individuality. And she's doing it through the use of the metaphors, the rhetorical questions, and the repetition. So she's doing these things through the 3 devices. So go ahead and take a moment now, pause the video, and maybe create your sample thesis. It's helpful to have your thesis figured out first before you decide to put together your outline. The next part is looking at the outline of your essay. It's pretty simple. You'll have an introduction with thesis, my same thesis from earlier, and you'll have a look at you'll break it down into your 3 devices. So I'm going to have a paragraph that's just on examples of how she uses metaphor within the song and how this contributes to my theme. I'm also going to spend a little bit of time in this paragraph at the beginning setting up what the definition of metaphor is. And this is where I might bring in a definition from outside of the class. Then I might look at examples of the rhetorical questions, the abundance of questions that she uses within the song. Do you ever feel like a plastic bag or a house of cards? She's always asking you something. And how does this contribute to my theme of inspiration and embracing individuality? Well, often when we're not really embracing our individuality, we question ourselves a lot. And so those rhetorical questions are at the beginning. And you'll notice that in the song, she shifts to more statements and less questions. I'd also look at repetition too. I might look at the refrain specifically, or I might look at that repetition of you throughout the song. I could give multiple examples and then maybe define repetition at the beginning of the paragraph and talk about how that repetition helps me with this theme that I have here. And then in your conclusion, you'd probably restate your thesis, explain why this is important, and give some sort of a message to the reader. This is important to my reader because oftentimes we are looking for inspiration with our lives and we're trying to embrace our individuality. And so the message that Katy Perry has in her song and the devices that she uses really help her reader connect to the song. Take a few minutes, pause the video, and put together your outline for your song. So now that you have thought about how to break down your song, you've put together a thesis, you've put together an outline, what are you going to do? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to take that thesis and outline and a picture of the breakdown of your song, and you're going to post them underneath the 3.1 prompt on Blackboard. It's in the same prompt that you found the videos for today. And then the next class, when we come back from Thanksgiving, we're going to work on analyzing and how our paragraphs might be broken down. And we'll talk a little bit more about the MLA element, how to give credit for song lyrics and reference those individual lines. So on that note, have a great Thanksgiving, and if you're traveling out of town, safe travels, and I will see you guys when we get back. Bye.